Hi, this is Jim from TrekWorld, and today we're going to do one of the most detailed analysis ever done of a Star Trek episode on YouTube. We will go over every visual effect that the USS Enterprise had in an episode. Now, we're all familiar with bloopers, but what we're going to take a look at today isn't just bloopers, but any other times that things just feel off in the episode. So join me now as we take a look at Shore Leave. Now, before we get further into the episode, I'd like to begin by discussing the shots of the original Enterprise, in particular the 11-foot model that were used in this episode. We're going to basically take a look at those shots, tell you where they were filmed originally first, and if any were actually created for this episode. And first up, we have a shot from Mudd's Women of the Enterprise orbiting the planet. Then we're going to cut to a couple of shots that actually were from Where No Man Has Gone Before. There was no new footage of the Enterprise shot for this particular episode. One thing I really found interesting, of course, is that when the giant rabbit appears, when he leaves the scene, he walks like a normal individual. I want you to remember that, because we're going to come back to it in just a moment. Okay, this is an oddity here. Right after Kirk beams down to the planet, he's going to walk by two more crewmen, and as he walks by, he addresses one by the name
Rodriguez. Teller. Everything all right?
Although neither crew member went by the name of Teller in this episode, nor did the name Teller show up again. Now remember, I mentioned a few minutes ago that you want to keep track of the fact that our giant white rabbit walked off with a normal human being's gait, but the prints that you see in the mud here are side-by-side prints, which is exactly what you would expect if he had actually hopped. The only problem was he didn't hop. Now, in this scene, let's talk about a couple of things, but they all revolve around Spock beaming down from the Enterprise. And what you actually hear at the beginning of this is Sulu saying,
"Someone beaming down from the bridge."
Now, there are two reasons why that particular statement isn't really germane to this episode. One, people don't beam down from the bridge, they beam down from the transporter room. Two, he doesn't know who it is that's beaming down because he does not say, "Oh, look, there's the silhouette of Spock beaming down from the bridge." No, he's looking straight at it and says someone's beaming down from the bridge, which implies he does not see that it is Spock yet in the materialization. This ties in what Kirk says.
Something's obstructing it.
But Sulu had no way of knowing that it was someone from the bridge, and they didn't beam down from the bridge. Now, another thing that happens as you watch this episode is time and time again, we pass by areas that have used red spray paint to mark specific trees, sometimes even marking the vegetation, as you see in the beginning of these clips. All throughout this episode, we are told over and over again, it's an uninhabited planet, there's no signs of life, yet nobody questions the trails and the roads that are littering the entire countryside. And this is more of a note than a blooper, but Angela Martinez is flirting with this particular crew member, which wouldn't be too bad if it weren't for the fact that she had just lost her fiancé in the episode that aired immediately prior to this one. Now, in reality, we all know they were really written and shot weeks apart from each other. However, it just does make a slightly uncomfortable juxtaposition when they decided to air the episodes one right after the other. Now, if you watch the left-hand side of the screen, and we are going to pull it in a little bit to get a clear idea of where Bones is going, because right behind him, this uninhabited planet has a building. In addition to a building, this uninhabited planet also has machine-cut logs all over the place. You can see the one behind McCoy right here, and all throughout the episode, you're going to see tree stumps that are also machine-cut. Now, in this scene, we learn that you shouldn't give any kind of weapon to Sulu, whether it be a gun or a foil. It doesn't really matter. His love of weapons is almost infectious when you see him. That's a genuine smile, okay?
I found it. An old-time police special.
There is a problem, however, though. He identifies this as a police special, and he shoots it 4 times in this scene. But in a following scene, Kirk has the gun, and he shoots it 3 more times at the knight in shining armor. That's 7 shots from a 6-shooter gun. Also, while we're at it, notice how Sulu actually grabs the barrel of the gun after it has been fired several times. Trust me, it would have been hot to the touch. No, after Kirk shoots the knight in shining white armor and he hits the ground, we get 2 close-up shots of I guess it's supposed to be like a mannequin, an animatronic maybe, like Disney has some type of terribly artificial humanoid body inside. The first shot we see, its eyes are open. The second shot we see, its eyes closed. All right, let me step in here for a second, because this is one of those things that classifies as being interesting about this particular episode, and not really a blooper. But there was a very unusual career development for one of our actors in this video, and some of you might have heard it, but basically, the actor Bruce Mars, who originally came in to audition for Bailey in the Carbamide Maneuver, he didn't get that part, but they did bring him back in order to play the part of Finnegan in Shore Leave. Now, Bruce was actually fairly early in his acting career. He began as a model. Then he actually participated in Olympic trials, and then he settled into acting in the mid-1960s. But by 1969, he had given that up. And instead, he opted to change his name to Paraman Nanda and became a monk in a religious group. Now this group, the Self-Realization Fellowship, had gained some notoriety as among one of the people that frequented quite often with Elvis. As a matter of fact, Bruce would recount several times later in his life that he and Elvis had quite a few conversations about God and about Elvis's concern about God in his life. Now, brother Paramananda is still alive and active. Actually, on their website, he was last referenced in 2019. And after all these years later, you can pretty much see that his acting career came and went in like 5 years, and the bulk of his life has been spent as a monk. More power to it. Now, as Star Trek fans, we all like to feel that we're open-minded about things, so by all means, this is not a critical commentary at all. If anything else, it's a respectful commentary, because he literally put his money where his mouth was, and he changed his life. So I just wanted to bring that out so you guys would know that, because it's probably one of the more unusual stories that you would ever actually run across in a Star Trek guest star. However, he would make one more appearance before disappearing from Star Trek, and he appeared as a character called Charlie in Operation Annihilate. So I guess now back to our regularly scheduled program. And what would one of these reviews be without actually spotting some wardrobe idiosyncrasies? In this case, Finnegan tosses Kirk backwards. Kirk lands on the dirt, of course, on his back, and you can clearly see when the stuntman's back smacks the dirt that his uniform is completely intact. But a split second later, when we switch to a different camera angle and actually focus in on William Shatner, the entire top of his uniform is ripped down. And the scene immediately following this, Kirk begins to roll over to get up. And when he does, the camera switches over to Finnegan. But behind Finnegan, you can see the shadow of one of the production people moving very, very quickly across the left-hand side of the screen. And the wardrobe malfunctions keep coming. Notice that in this particular scene, her uniform is torn over her shoulder on the right-hand side, just like Kirk's was. But in this scene where you see her actually admiring the dress and she's about ready to be like waltzed off the screen by Don Juan, the rip has actually switched sides and is now on her left shoulder. And why just have one plane when we can have two? The first time Kirk sees the plane and looks up, it is clearly a U.S. aircraft. You could actually see the U.S. markings on the underside of the wing as it passes overhead. But just a split second later, it begins to strafe two other crew members, and by this point, it's a Japanese Zero. Now, this is not necessarily a blooper, so I don't really want to get into it as a blooper, but it is an interesting oddity. The multiple times that we see close-ups of Leonard Nimoy delivering his lines were obviously taken on a soundstage, as that sky does not match the overall color of the sky that was present on site when it was filmed on location. So in this scene, we get an unexpected piece of slapstick humor. As Angela and Rodriguez run to escape from the strafing Japanese Zero, Angela runs face first into a tree. Now, the tiger in this scene actually did not interact with any of the cast or actors when they filmed its shots. Nevertheless, the tiger was secured at all times, and in this particular clip, you can see a very rare glimpse of the chain that went around its neck. After revealing to our heroes that the planet does not actually really hurt people, I mean, McCoy came back from the dead, the crew of the Enterprise is invited to continue to do shore leave with the proper precautions. So Kirk opens up the communicator.
It's transporting shore leave parties.
Makes no mention of proper precaution. At the end of the episode, it's revealed that it's all for fun and games, and that everybody is safe. The entire crew is accounted for, except for Angela Martinez, who apparently is still laying at the bottom of the tree.